Hi, everyone, and welcome back to the second day of the Eat to Curb Your Anxiety mini masterclass. Once again, my name is Talia, and I am a registered holistic nutritionist. I hope you guys all enjoyed day one's class, and I look forward to jumping into today's. So today's anxiety trigger of the day is food additives. So we will only be scratching the surface with this one because unfortunately there are so many different types of food additives. So I just narrowed it down to about a handful of the most common ones that are found in our foods and our packaged foods. So food additives are coloring, flavoring, sweeteners, preservatives, emulsifiers, and other chemicals that are added to our foods during processing. So food dyes and food additives, including artificial sweeteners, are neurotoxins that can disrupt normal nervous system function, which leads to symptoms of increased anxiety. So neurotoxins are synthetic or naturally occurring substances that damage, destroy, or impair the functioning of the central and or peripheral nervous system. So we're going to dive into a handful of the most common food additives to avoid. And the first one that we're going to be talking about is artificial food coloring dyes, which is probably one of the most common ones that you will see in packaged foods. So artificial food colorings are most commonly found in candy, chips, cereals, nut and fruit bars, dressings, condiments. So once again, as I mentioned before, don't let marketing fool you because chances are that it does have artificial food coloring in it. And even the products that claims natural ingredients or made with natural flavor color may still appear on foods that are actually still made with synthetic or artificial ingredients. So as long as the ingredients in question fall under the natural claims guidelines, there are always loopholes to sneak these additives in. So what this means is, let's say an ultra processed snack food labeled made with natural flavors, it might be construed as better or healthier or a safer choice simply just because of the claim natural. Yet in reality, this natural snack food doesn't offer any more advantage in terms of health or safety over its ultra processed competitor who doesn't make the same claim. So keep in mind, natural is not a regulated term. So the regulations behind it are very, very minimal. So that's why you commonly see the words natural thrown around. And it honestly is just mainly a marketing tactic. Another thing to be aware of, especially is in the ingredient labels, is red 40, yellow 5, and yellow 6. So these are known to be contaminated with carcinogens and are linked to allergies, migraines, and mental disorders in children. Red dye 40 especially, it's a synthetic color additive or food dye, and it's actually made from petroleum. So we don't want that in our foods. Next, we're going to talk about monosodium glutamate, which you probably know as MSG. It's a food additive used to intensify and enhance the flavor of savory dishes. It's commonly found in seasonings, instant noodles, fast food, soups, dressings, condiments, and chips. And MSG has actually been linked with obesity, metabolic disorders, and neurotoxic effects and harmful effects on the reproductive organs. So over time, if MSG is commonly consumed in your diet, it typically builds up in your brain and it can actually go deep into your brain tissue and it can cause a lot of inflammation, a lot of swelling. It can kill lots of brain cells and it weakens our neurotransmitters, which are responsible for how we feel. And then it also can burn out neurons and make you feel confused and anxious. So just like how we talked about in day one, that sugar can be labeled in many different terms on labels. Same goes for MSG. So it won't always be stated as MSG on the label. So here I've included a list of hidden names. I will also send you guys this chart as well. So as you can see, there's 15 other names for MSG. So just be aware when you are reading the labels. So next is sodium nitrites and nitrates. So sodium nitrite is an ingredient frequently found in processed meats. It acts as a preservative and protects against any growth of harmful bacteria, but unfortunately it has been linked to cancer. So to be clear, it's not so much the nitrates and nitrites itself that are carcinogenic, but it's the way that they are cooked and our local environment that is what makes it an important factor. So for example, if nitrites in processed meats are in close proximity to proteins, specifically amino acids, and it's cooked on a high temperature, this allows them to more easily form nitrosamines, which is the cancer-causing compound. So I thought that bacon would be a perfect example. We cook bacon on a really high heat, and there's sodium nitrite in these products. So when it is cooked on high heat, that's when this cancer-causing compound can form. And also, I just wanted to point out, even just with the black label Canadian bacon, it says naturally hardwood smoked. So once again, just throwing in that natural words just to get people's eye. Next, we're going to be talking about high fructose corn syrup. So just kind of piggybacking off of yesterday's class about refined sugar. High fructose corn syrup, another word for sugar. It's made from a liquid sweetener made from cornstarch. And once again, it's commonly found in packaged foods, condiments, candy, chips, ketchup, sauces, marinades, all that. It's made by breaking down corn into molecules of glucose, which is a type of sugar. And it can contribute to obesity, heart disease and diabetes, and digestive health, like bloating and gas. So just like refined sugar, it can cause a lot of inflammation, and it can also affect our blood sugar levels, which then can contribute to our anxiety. So lastly, we're going to talk a little bit about artificial sweeteners. So it's a synthetic sugar substitute, which are commonly used because they don't affect your blood sugar levels and have little to no calories. So a lot of people kind of like to look at artificial sweeteners as a healthier alternative, but it's really not. So some of these artificial sweeteners actually might be even harder on our metabolic system than plain sugar. And this is because they can actually cause previously healthy gut bacteria to become diseased, and then it can invade in our gut wall, which then leads to poor gut health, which then leads to symptoms of anxiety. So just be mindful with your artificial sweeteners. So for example, aspartame, it has been linked to behavioral and cognitive problems, including learning problems, headaches, seizure, migraines, irritable moods, anxiety, depression, and insomnia. And as mentioned again in day one, at the end of the day, sugar is sugar, but using options like monk fruit, organic sugar, stevia, raw honey, it's way less processed, and it is a lot easier on our digestive system. So if one of the reasons why you like artificial sweeteners is because it's synthetic sugar, just maybe substitute it for honey, because like I said, it's way easier on our digestive system. So we're going to get a little bit more into detail about how to read your food labels. I know I touched base on it yesterday, but I just wanted to go a little bit more in depth today. So I do encourage you to try to aim to buy a majority of your foods as whole foods that don't require reading like 20 plus ingredients. Or if you are, just try to purchase products that only have a few ingredients. But if you do end up purchasing packaged items, which there's nothing wrong with that, it's just, once again, for awareness and to be mindful. I just want you to be able to read and understand what these labels mean, and just really understand what you're buying and what's in these products. So once again, one of the most important parts of reading a list of ingredients is that the contents are always listed from highest quantity to lowest. So the highest amount listed first. So for example, in this food label, first ingredient, high fructose corn syrups, and then second corn syrup. So those are the main ingredients in this product, and then goes down to the lowest. So next, we're going to talk about serving size. So be aware, the food manufacturer does this on purpose. What they do is they limit the serving size so that the number of calories or fat appears smaller, especially in junk food. So to figure out exactly what the serving size is, multiply the servings by the number of servings in the package to determine exactly what you're consuming per serving. Now that I'm aware of this, sometimes I'll look at a package and it'll be like a quarter of a cup, and it's like, why would I have a quarter of a cup of this? Like, I'm obviously going to have, that's not even a full serving. So they just do that to trick you, to kind of make it seem healthier. And then another thing to be mindful of is the daily percent value. So these percentages show the amount of nutrients an average person will get from eating one serving of that food. So for the purposes of food labels, the government chooses an average person as someone who eats around 2,000 calories a day. So they base it off of that. And then 5% or less is low for the daily percent value, and then 20% or more is high. So for example, if you're looking at this label that I use, this food label shows that the saturated fat per serving, which is half a cup, is 45% of saturated fat of the daily value, which is very, very high. So just keep in mind when you are looking at that, look at the serving first, then look at the daily percent value. Half a cup is 45% of saturated fat. So that's obviously on the less healthier side. So just a little tips on how to minimize food additives and exposure. So purchase fresh or frozen fruits and vegetables. Honestly, frozen fruits and vegetables is great, especially because it lasts longer and it's awesome to have when you're low on groceries. I always keep a few bags of fruits and vegetables in my freezer. Remember always to wash your produce, especially if you aren't buying organic. There are lots of pesticides on conventionally grown produce. Also purchasing locally is also a better alternative. I am really enjoying these local farm markets throughout the summer. They are so much fun to go to. And I just find that the quality of my produce is so much better. Next, drink filtered water. So in BC, our tap water filtration system is actually pretty good. They use a pretty extensive process, but there are still some bacteria, pharmaceuticals, or toxic chemicals that can manage to slip their way through. So it is better to be safe than sorry, because if you think about it, we are drinking water every single day. So even though it's only in small amounts, if you're drinking 8+ cups of water a day and it's not filtered, then it's obviously might not always be the cleanest. And then obviously, once again, read ingredient labels. Don't let marketing fool you. If it has more than 5+ ingredients, just be mindful, make sure you read it thoroughly, just understand what you are consuming. And then just decrease your intake of overall processed foods. Choose fruits, vegetables, whole grains, legumes, nuts and seeds, and animal products that do have minimal processing. So grass-fed meats, you want to pick like wild salmon, wild fish. And as one of my methods, I really like to focus on foods in rather than foods out, because once you start experimenting with how food makes you feel, and you listen to your body, oftentimes you would prefer a nice, well-balanced home-cooked meal as opposed to a quick McDonald's burger or something. So that's one thing that I really like using with a non-restrictive approach. And now here is another example of a list of examples of food swap ideas that are less processed, don't have additives or sugar added to it, and will keep you feeling balanced and your anxiety at bay throughout the day. On a more personal note, when I used to get really bad anxiety throughout the day, my appetite would completely disappear. And I usually wouldn't eat unless I had a few glasses of wine or smoked some weed. And then instantly my go-to would be something super high carb and cheesy because I hadn't ate all day, and then I was all of a sudden famished and my appetite came back. And then the next day I would feel a million times worse and be like, why is my anxiety so bad? But now when I start to feel really anxious and notice that I'm not receiving my usual hunger cues, I make sure that I still eat something that's going to give me a boost mentally and physically, because we want to keep our blood sugar levels balanced. We don't want to get to that point of starvation, and we want to feed our brains, our neurotransmitters that are responsible for our mood and how we feel. And I always remind myself that I will likely feel worse when I do skip meals or just eat pure junk food. So this mindset really helped me to incorporate balanced meals, even when my anxiety is bad. Even something like small, like if you aren't hungry, smoothies are great. Even if you have like 5 smoothies in one day, it's better than nothing. It's better than chips, better than candy. It's better than junk food. Soups are great for when you have little appetite as well. Just making like a quick homemade chicken noodle soup or a stew, all that is great as well for when your anxiety is really bad. So that pretty much sums up today's class. Thank you so much for listening. Once again, if you do have any questions, comments, or concerns, please email me. I would love to hear your feedback, and I look forward to seeing you all tomorrow for day 3. Thank you.